old talk radio are criticizing a 15-year-old girl for defending herself with a firearm in her own house. That's all coming up. The big story, of course, is the ongoing latest developments and machinations with Iran. It's all coming up. But right now, let's go to your calls. Jonathan in Kansas says he disagrees. So we'll go to him first, then Chad, Laura, Dan, and others. Jonathan, you're on the air.
Yes, Alex. What I disagree, it's not like a big disagreement. It's actually like specifics. Like you had that one woman that talk about the bioweapons facilities and whatnot, and you said it was in Missouri. It's actually in Kansas. It's in northeastern Kansas. And what's interesting is the reason they put it in was basically to fight against diseases with animals.
Okay,
like
sir, there's over 200 BioShield bases in the U.S. They're all over the state of Kansas and Missouri. And, of course, under BioShield, they claim it's to fight against diseases. But even in the New York Times and Washington Post, they say, why are they making new weaponized things? It's been well known that it's illegal to have a bioweapons program. So the people that run the U.S. do it under the guise of fighting bioweapons. That's always been a fraud.
I wasn't disagreeing with what your analysis is. My point was, the reason why specifically they put that there is, let's say something releases, and in Kansas, one of the main things is cattle. And cattle, we're like ranked 7th in cattle production and meat and beef. So if one of those diseases gets released, they can wipe out the food supply.
Oh, yeah, they were going to have drills with the original equipment used to kill millions of cows and sheep in England in the weaponized foot and mouth outbreak that it was later admitted the government released. They claimed a terrorist in the government must have done it, but nobody got caught. In a couple-day period, it popped up in hundreds of spots around the country. It had been pre-planted everywhere, and the government used it as a huge power grab. They were going to come to Texas and other states. That was a big brouhaha. And do drills for foot and mouth with the very equipment used to kill the cattle. And, of course, bring the foot and mouth here. It's all just part of insanity. But, I mean, what do you disagree with then?
Well, that was one thing. But the other thing was about 9/11. The plan of what do you call it, Operation Northwoods is actually older than that. If you look at Operation Anvil, one of the Kennedys died in that operation, and that's when they had drone planes. They were testing that since then. That's actually older than the Operation Northwoods.
Now, I've talked a lot about Joe Kennedy Jr. dying. And he was flying a one-man aircraft behind, I believe it was a Liberator, loaded with explosives as a unmanned drone. And they don't know what happened to him. They think the Germans shot him down. But, yeah, that was a program. But Northwoods itself is a plan from 1962 to stage terror attacks in America and blame it on Cuba and the Soviets. And it was green-lighted. So I don't think we disagree. I appreciate your call. Every time they have a police state military checkpoint, they say, this is the first time we've done this. Your town is very special. They found that psychologically, they say it's the first time that locals feel honored somehow. It's the first time we've stuck you in a meat grinder, but it's never the first time. Even when they've done it repeatedly, it's always the first time. It's always, we're putting this in Kansas to keep you safe and in case there's a bioweapon released to protect your livestock in this area. The facilities are the threat. They put a level 4 in the University of Texas facility in Galveston that got wrecked in a hurricane a few years ago. They're putting level 4s in level 2 facilities. They're putting the most deadly stuff in the world in tin cans. Okay, so there's a Google employee, they're busy starting revolutions all over the world, connected to creating a plan to dress up people like members of the Ku Klux Klan and have them go out and support Ron Paul as a way to destroy him. I'm going to get Paul Watson and our reporters to tie this in to the entire history of this that's gone on before. There's an article out of In-Run News that breaks it down and actually has a photo of the guy. Paul haters caught planning to dress up as KKK, pose as Paul supporters. So we're going to definitely get our own report on that out, because our report is going to tie into the fact that folks connected to the Democrat that Rand Paul ran against in Kentucky, they got caught doing similar things. So we're going to get a report out on that right now. I also, after I take some more calls, want to get into human blunders seen at the heart of Italy ship disaster. Every time a ship runs aground, every time there's a disaster, a Katrina, the government can't and won't help you, and then comes into the high and dry areas in Katrina and takes people's firearms. Over and over and over again. And so why do you think government can protect you? And then the people at the top of government are a bunch of anti-human eugenicists funded and financed by a bunch of predatory, parasitic, finance oligarch, Ponzi scheme, fiat currency, derivative selling scam artist. Okay, that's enough. I'm getting to all of it and the Iran news. But right now, let's go ahead and talk to Laura in Minnesota. You're on the air, Laura.
Hi, Alex. I just wanted to thank you for your patriotism, because it's just incredible the work that you're doing, and just a sincere thank you.
Well, thank you.
Alex, I do believe that the New World Order, or whoever these powers, will use the hysteria and the hype and the media for 2012 to stage a false flag attack. I think they actually may even use a big venue, God forbid, but there's an Illuminati card out that shows Big Ben being destroyed, and we know the Olympics are in London this year, that could set off.
By the way, if we have new listeners, the guy that came up with the Illuminati cards in the early 90s has basically everything that's happened in the cards. And it's really creepy. We've done special reports on that. And he lives in Austin. And I know we called like a year ago to get him on. They said, well, he's out of town for a month, but call back then. I want to get that guy on. I absolutely want to get the maker of the Illuminati cards. He has a video game company here in Austin. I want to, yeah, we'll go after him. I want him. Or I want to go over to his office and bang on the door and demand to talk to him. I mean, he lives here in Austin, and I've had enough of this. He's coming on, or we're going over there. I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead. I just wanted to fill in what you were talking about for new listeners.
Right. So I would see that as a world stage where they could have this attack orchestrated, and yet then, as they've already circled the wagons around us with this defense authorization bill and all these FEMA camps and everything, and use the hysteria and use all of this, and so it wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world, but it would certainly be the end of the world as we know it. On top of that, as a Christian, we know that there's prophetic events that could be coming as well. And if you take that as well as what could happen with these false flag attacks, it could be such a mess that they would declare martial law. And, you know, they've already said that Obama needs something like that in order to get a second term. Needs some kind of attack or something like that. So he could eventually declare martial law, and there might not even be an election.
Well, any of that is possible. And again, I'm not saying 2012 won't be a wild year with Iran, war talk, the economy melting down. But the globalists have planned for a long time right around this period to have a lot of craziness go on. And so they plan on saying it's the end of the world, so people go along with whatever happens and feel powerless. I mean, do you get my angle on that?
I do, and I think that they are going to use it. It's too good of an opportunity for them to not play the people and to not use the hysteria, and they're just going to take advantage of it.
I tend to agree with you. It's going to be a crazy year. Strap yourselves in. Thank you so much, Laura. Appreciate that call. Dan in Florida, you're on the air. Thanks for holding as well.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to kind of give you a news tip. You probably already know stuff like this, but I'm in Tampa, and I went out hunting in a remote area with a friend of my stepdad who's a Tampa police officer, and he said that his superiors told him to get out, to make sure that all of his family and everybody that they knew were out of the city August 27th through the 30th, and that extremist groups like Anonymous were going to hack into the police communication system, so that the police couldn't respond to crime, and then they're going to, then Anonymous and other groups were going to commit senseless acts like dropping bricks off of on cars from overpasses and stuff.
All right, let me get those dates again. What did this senior police officer tell you?
He told me that his superiors said to them during the Republican National Convention. Now, he didn't tell me the dates. I just know the dates of the Republican National Convention, August 27th or the 30th. He told them, make sure that the family and nobody is near the city of Tampa during that time.
Well, no, I didn't know about that. But, again, this is how mindless this gets. And I want to explain this as simply as I can. I know some people do understand what I'm saying. They just act like they don't to be trolls. But take Anonymous or take something like people wearing Guy Fawkes mask, or take Occupy Wall Street. These are always either things that come from individual activists that get picked up and become popularized, or they're issues put out by the Ford Foundation, George Soros, i.e. Occupy Wall Street, that's completely nebulous. We're mad at Wall Street, which is a generalization. Then it turns out the big banks are actually financing it directly through Soros and others on record to demonize the rest of Wall Street and the rest of the free market, so it takes the blame, and so the big mega banks hooked up with government can come in with regulators backed up by the dumbed-down mass that doesn't know what's going on and take over what's left of the free market, which was never the problem. It was crony insiders that did it. Then when you criticize Occupy as, oh, just come protest, we don't know what about, then the operators can come in from Soros and Ford Foundation, take it over, and then basically hijack a revolution they know is already coming. They kind of pre-detonate revolutions before they get there so they can steer them and misdirect them. It's like Red Adair blowing up an oil well with dynamite. It's a controlled explosion, and this gets into the social engineering, and they write white papers on it. Now, it's the same thing with Anonymous. Anonymous, attacks Ron Paul. Anonymous says they were going to hack so that the votes could all be counted in Iowa in secret. It turned out there was fraud in Iowa, and it was admitted on Fox News that, we had a gentleman's agreement because all these key districts didn't come in, and we just made Santorum second place instead of Ron Paul. And it's just in your face, but because it's a little complex, the public just kind of tunes out because they're trained to just receive data, not to learn the fun of actually being informed. People think thinking is hard. No, not thinking's hard. It's dull. So it's the same issue, sir. Anonymous, just to finish, is just this giant cutout that then Homeland Security and others who've been caught doing this can cyber attack their own systems to then have an excuse to come in and take over the internet, pass the SOPA bill. Israel's being hacked right now. The government used the Stuxnet last year to call for internet censorship when the government admits they launched Stuxnet. So again, only a dumbed-down public. Think of the disdain the system has, that they would say, Israel and the U.S. launched Stuxnet, and 6 months later, we got to take your rights because of Stuxnet. A terrorist launched it. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead and make your point.
No, yeah. I was just going to say, it was completely obvious to me that they were sort of, creating this hysteria, and of course, they'll use it as a pretext for something. But I was going to say one thing further that, just for the new listeners out there, because I remember once upon a time I doubted some of the things that you said. And, obviously I still check, on some of the stuff you say. But his superiors told all of the officers not to go on any quote-unquote extremist websites or the government will be, quote, in your computer. They're creating this whole hysteria. And